You are now listening to F&B Radio.
And welcome to F&B Radio. My name is Lindsay Collins, and I am your host. Sometimes everything gets in the way of me doing this show. I've gotten every out-of-place phone call, every interruption that I could possibly have, but I'm here. It's Friday morning. I'm getting this done. This isn't going to be your sleepy time tea, Lindsay. This is I've had 4 cups of cold brew. Sexy spiced cold brew, and I'll get to that in a minute. And I'm ready to rumble. I hope you are too. There's a slight chill in the air. I've got some advice on how to pumpkin proudly, or at all. And I hope you are too. Get in here. Let's go. First of all, I want to say I was driving down the road and I saw a sign, a billboard that was like proud to pumpkin. And I was like, what is proud to pumpkin? Are people ashamed to pumpkin? And then I remembered that, yes, people do get insane and like there's so many commercialized ways to capitalize on the fall season and the turning of the seasons. But what it really stems from, and this is what I like to keep in focus, is that people do love the reset. My children woke up this morning and felt the air and they were like full of energy and excitement and way overdressed. Like they were wearing toboggans and mittens and gloves and boots, and they looked like they were about to fall down a mountain, like sometime in the deep of winter in Siberia. Like they were so overdressed. But children are often a great barometer for just pure essence of how people are feeling. So I think that the reason it's such a commercialized element of fall is that because somewhere deep down inside of all of us, we love the new season. We love fall. It is just, I mean, I cannot wait to put on a bomber jacket and boots. I'm not ashamed to put pumpkin spice in some things. I'm not out here, making pumpkin spice steak. I don't know. I don't want like a pumpkin spice spiced savory thing necessarily. But I do like to get a little celebratory with the pumpkin and the pumpkin spices, the hard spices. And here's a couple of different ways that I do that. And I recommend that you do the same. First of all, the first thing that comes to mind every single time there's a chill in the air and we start to see the leaves drop is something that's very important to me, which is the sexy spiced coffee. And you've probably heard this. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you know that when I lived in Bushwick, there was a French guy named Imric who kind of babysat all of the burnouts that lived in this crazy apartment complex. And he was amazing, and he would make food in a cafe, but the cafe was just his house, his apartment building on the first floor. And he was amazing, and he was really, really in the French way where they just make it look so fucking effortless to make everything delicious and perfect and, à point. Or on point if you're not fluent, sorry. He would take coffee and spice it, and he would call it sexy spiced coffee, and it was always available during the season, like when it got cool, because no one really wants to drink hard spices in the summer. I mean, some people do, and I'll allow it. Like I don't care if you're a chai person all year long. That's great. Do it. Who could deny it? It's so good. It's so much more complex. It's so much more delicious than just regular coffee. But I only really want to have spiced coffee in the fall or sometimes the winter too. But here's how you do it. And there's a couple of different ways. I think it's most effective in a French press. And it just really is an aromatic delight when you're making your coffee. But you put your grounds in, whether you're using, a drip coffee, like standard basket, Mr. Coffee, if you will. Where's Mrs. Coffee? Just Mr.? Nobody's got onto that train yet. I noticed. I just now noticed. But your Mr. Coffee or your French press, or even an espresso situation, I would just kind of mix it in, but put a dash of spice in with your coffee grounds before you brew. And it will sort of permeate all of the coffee as it brews. So it's subtle, but it's definitely there. And you can taste it and smell it. And it's just absolutely amazing. And it makes for a really fun, way to mark the season. So that's the first way that I do it. The second way is some sort of pumpkin bread, or as I like to call it, breakfast cake. It's just a cake that you can eat anytime. And I love them all. I love all recipes as long as there's a streusel on top, some sort of chopped nut, pumpkin pie spice flavoring. I typically go for more of an olive oil based cake for this just because I like it super, super dense and fudgy, but pumpkin flavored. It is absolutely one. I made one yesterday. I'll probably make 3 more before the month's over. And I'm talking about September. It's not many days left. And then the last way that I will start to incorporate, more fall flavors isn't even necessarily pumpkin related, but you certainly can do it. Butternut squash, pumpkin, any sort of roasted fall root vegetable. Now, in the South, we're still like literally getting tomatoes, so this is kind of jumping the gun. But if you are getting fall squashes, kabocha squash, acorn squash, butternut, there's so many more types of nut squashes than there were when I was aware of squashes as a child. Like there used to just be the standard butternut, and everyone was like, "Oh, I don't want to peel that. I hate that." And then now there's like little tiny ones, acorn, honey nut, butternut, nutter butter squash. There's all kinds of wacky little squashes that look like kind of shrunken down miniature butternut squashes with a darker flesh and smaller seed cage. I don't peel them. I have PTSD from when I used to have to, oh my God. I used to have to peel butternut squash and then make them into perfect large dice cubes, which seems like, okay, fine, easy enough, but it's really not that easy considering the shape of the squash. It's an insane shape to try to cut something into a cube. There's just not very many flat sides. Like there is in the neck part, but you get what I'm saying. The thing looks like, something Tim Burton created. There's no way to make it cubed. Not consistently anyway. You might get 3 cubes out of one squash, and then what are you supposed to do with the rest? Make soup? I don't think so. And so I don't really ever peel the butternut squash. This is typically my move if I'm working with butternut or honey nut or any whatever nutter, butter nutter. I slice them in half long ways. I scoop out the seeds. I set them aside because I will toast those later. Or you can just throw them away or throw them in your compost or whatever people do and they don't talk about it. And then I fill the kind of little center cavity of the squash sides with a little bit of olive oil, some crushed garlic. I twist up some either thyme or rosemary or both. Stick that in the cage, which is just the little, I don't know why I'm calling it. It is the seed cage, but I guess it's what's left of the seed cage. Anyway, and then just roast it. And you can scoop it out. It's almost a main on its own. Salt and pepper, obviously, Aleppo pepper, chili flake, a drizzle of honey, a squeeze of lemon, get crazy with it, but just season the squash and put it on a big platter and let people just scoop it out. It's honestly one of the best things you'll ever eat. And it's truly worthy of being a main on its own. Now that we're talking about squashes and pumpkins, there's one that really, I've never actually made it, but I'm probably going to do it this year. I say this every year to myself and I never do it, but I've never said it out loud before. So maybe if I tell you guys, maybe one of yous made it. Maybe one of yous guys has made it. It's Daniel Boulud's recipe. That's how I'm aware of it, but I don't think he invented it. I think it's a super Frenchy thing to do, but you take a cheese pumpkin, which sounds like, it's cheese colored, which inside it is, but on the outside, you'll see them. They're kind of flat. They look like a wheel of cheese, like a Parmesan wheel of cheese, like they're squashy and flat. I don't mean squashy like it's genus. I mean squashy like it's a flattened pumpkin. And they're green. They're that gorgeous, pale sage green on the outside. And they look like they're not even real. They're exquisite. And his recipe basically scoops out the flesh, chops it up, roasts it, and then he makes layers of, I don't even know, like so many different things. Soaked breadcrumbs that are just grated with garlic and Gruyere and bacon. It's got everything in it. It's basically a stuffed pumpkin filled with all of those things that I just said. Sage, Gruyere cheese, bacon, torn breadcrumbs, pumpkin seeds, you name it, it's in there. It's just like this decadent stuffed squash or pumpkin, same thing. And I've always wanted to make one because they used to make them at Fig during the holidays, and they would just be like this gorgeous centerpiece that sat on the table that you just literally lift the little lid off of. You know what I'm thinking? Jack-o'-lantern style. And then inside is all of this insanely delicious feast just stuffed inside a pumpkin. So for a really, really, really long time, I might have to do it this year because I've been dancing around it for years, but I'm like, I've been threatening to do this instead of a turkey. And I know I'm jumping right to Thanksgiving, but I'm just going to put that in my mind and make a mental note that instead of a turkey this year, I think I'm going to do the stuffed pumpkin from Daniel Boulud. If you haven't seen it, Google it, look it up. It is absolutely gorgeous, and one of the more unique ways I've ever seen pumpkin presented. So there you go. That's my pumpkin inspo for you. Either way, I hope you're enjoying the season, and I hope you're not as overly dressed as my children, because I was like, you look a little red in the face. You're sweating. But yeah, I'm actually currently sipping on a little cold spice, and that's just the sexy spiced coffee that I've now iced. And I'm getting into it. I've got my boots on. I've got a sweatshirt on. I'm kicking it. And I hope you are too. What's been going on? What has been going on? Oh, I'm getting ready for Creative Mornings. Today, if you're listening to the show, it's Friday, September 23rd. I think tickets are available the 25th. I need to double check that, but it's either the 25th or the 26th. But if you go to the episode before, which is called, oh God, what is it called? It's called Granola Sweatpants. If you go to that episode, there's a link and you can click it in the show notes and it'll take you to a place where you can claim tickets. I think the tickets are free. You just have to claim them. And you can come to my talk at Creative Mornings. I am so excited about that. I'm spending the weekend finishing my speech. I'm going to speak for about 20 minutes, talk about F&B radio, how it got started, where it's going next. Just some, I don't know, it'll be kind of like what I do every week, but in front of a bunch of people. So if you want to come and watch me get really nervous, you know what to do. But I am so honored to be speaking at Creative Mornings, and I hope to see you guys there. I hope to see some familiar faces because that always makes it easier. You know, I like to be, when I go to someone's show, I sit right in the front row and I wave at them uncomfortably just to be like a smiling face because I want someone in the crowd that I know. It makes me feel like I'm going to be okay. But there's a lot of fun stuff coming up. I mean, there's so many. We're in that season where things just get into hyperdrive. And I have been feeling like work is just getting crazy. We're at that crazy race until the end of the holidays. And it just feels like the year's over, but it's also just ramping up at the same time. So I hope that you're pacing yourself. And this is more a note to my own self. But, you know, not getting too worked up over the day-to-day because it can be overwhelming this time of year, especially after the lazy summer that I had where I was just like, I'm just relaxing. I'm trying to recharge and sit in the sun. And now I feel like, okay, you got to get your shit together. My clients are back and they're busy. And it's a great time of year. This truly is my high time. I'm not saying I'm high right now. I'm just saying it's my high time. You take that as it will. Take that as you will. Take that as it comes. Take that as it may. None of that made any sense. But you know what? I can't start this show over again just because I've had too much coffee. I've already done that like 15 times. So this is just what you get. Oh, man. Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to make some stuff this weekend. I'm probably going to roast a chicken. Anything roasted this time of year feels really good. So I encourage you to do the same. I encourage you to put on your comfy clothes, light some candles. That's like the best part of this time of year. It's getting darker earlier. Some people hate that. It makes them depressed. But for me, I love the darkness. It makes me feel like it's okay to be, chilling. If it's light outside, I have this sick, feeling that I should be doing something. But as soon as it gets dark, I'm like, oh, no. Why would I be doing something? It's dark. So the darkness and the shorter days really help me relax and help me put on comfy clothes and just kick it. And do a little introspective work. I find that I really like to write this time of year. This is my productive season for things creative because I feel really, more connected somehow to the earth. When the earth is so hot and it's summertime, I'm kind of just like floating around like in a daze, like my brain's boiling. But then when it gets cooler, it's like all of a sudden I'm in a trance. I feel nostalgic in the fall. I feel like it's the 90s. The 90s and fall, for whatever reason, maybe it's the absurd amount of plaid that's associated with both, or like flannels. But in my mind, they're inexplicably intertwined. And it's a good time for me to focus on things that are kind of hanging around and kicking around in the recesses of my brain. That's when I try to extract them all and get ready for the new year. Not that I'm rushing this year out the door. I'm quite the opposite. I'm like, let's just hang out. Let's just hang out here just for a bit longer because I didn't really get everything done that I wanted to get done. But you know what they say. Time waits for no one. Time is on my side. What do they say? I don't even know what they say, but I hope that, oh shit, I'm out of time. Guys, I'm out of time. I promise you next week, I'm going to get my shit together. I've been meaning, in fact, it was scheduled this week to have Mari Swarza on the show, and I'm not going to get into it, but we've had a whole car crisis happening, and it got pushed to next week. So I'm going to have a guest next week. It's going to be the amazing Mari Swarza. She's not really even a guest. She's more like a guest host because we're just going to shoot the shit, and she's hilarious, and it'll be fun. Maybe we'll talk about what she's making. Mari's my food improv friend, meaning that she improvs recipes. And she's great at improv. It's confusing, but you'll get it when you hear her speak. In the meantime, I hope you snag a ticket to Creative Mornings. I hope you make something that's pumpkin adjacent. And look out for the Sexy Spice coffee demo. If I can pull myself to sign on to Instagram. I'm trying. I really am. Some days are easier than others, but I love you. Thank you so much for being here. If you would, and if you want to rate and review the show, you can go into Apple Podcasts and just leave a review. It's a super cool thing to do that helps the show get even more listeners, people that follow it, followers. It feeds the algorithm. The algorithm is hungry and it wants your reviews so that it can serve the podcast to other people like you who might want to hear about Daniel Boulud's stuffed cheese pumpkin. Doesn't that thing sound insane? I don't know if I described it well enough, but maybe if you envisioned eating the opening feast, if you were a student at Hogwarts, this would be the thing that's in the middle that you're like, what is that? It just looks like wizard food in the coolest way. And it's an ancient preparation because I'm anybody that was cooking by putting the food inside another food, that's just smart because people didn't have pots and stuff. Pots were hard to come by. They still are. They're expensive. Good cookware is expensive, and it should be because it's extremely valuable. But I'm man, back in the day, if you had a big old pot, you were doing it. And if you didn't, you just dug out the pumpkin and cooked it in there. It's sustainable, honestly. It's genius. Give it a look. I'm going to make one. I'm saying it now. I'm making one instead of a turkey this year. You heard it here. You heard it here first. You heard it here first. That was hard to say. You guys are easy to love, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Bye, bye, bye. Bye, 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 bye.
pour passer des nuits à Ossou. On enverrait des cartes postales, je laisserai un mot sur le frigo. On déciderait de se faire la malle, ta famille, les amis, le bureau.